Anytime you're ready. Sorry about the little raspy voice.
No,
I've just
fine.
been,
We're
been
all
rehearsing
right.
like nonstop for like 2 days straight. You know.
Welcome the great Steve Lukather to
Oh,
RockCellarTV.
thank you for having me. I'm not.
You co-wrote 2 songs on Ringo's album. I wanted to talk to you about
That
those.
was big for me. That was like, you have to understand, like as a kid, life went from black and white to color when I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I come from that age. I'll be 60 next week, which is why I'm growing my hair out as a FU to turning 60. The fact that I still have hair is amazing enough. But getting back to the real point we're here, the Beatles, come on. That was the on switch to my life. Never in a million years, and I have a book coming out next year, which this is the most beautiful ending to the book that could ever be. I start out, it's about my musical career as a session musician, blah, blah, blah. Nothing too outrageous, you know. I still want to have friends at the end of the day. Anyway, it starts out with them, and to have this ending story where Ringo looked at me, like he says, I want to write a song with you, a couple songs with you for my new record. Now, we worked together on something on his last record, and it wasn't unusual to, you know, hang out with him. We live near each other, so we started hanging out, and I just adore this man. I really, you know, I'm not just saying it because he's Ringo, because, like, you know, he's just got a heart, man. Some connected, man. I mean, I feel like a long-lost brother, man. If his name was Bob Smith, he would be my best friend, you know? If he, you know, did another job or something, you know? The fact that I get to do this, and for the ending of the book to actually, he looked at me, we wrote this song, and I played most of the, you know, the other instruments because it was something that I came up with, and he came up with the lyric, you know, and we worked on some of that together to finish it because he wrote Show Me the Way for his wife, Barbara, who I also think is awesome. And he goes, you know, I played the original, I put a rough bass part down, and he came up and he played me his vocal, and he just did this killer vocal, and I was really touched by it. And I like had tears in my eyes up at the house. I live 8 minutes away from him, so I was like, that's right. I ran right over. And he goes, there's just one thing, the bass. And I said, oh, don't worry about the bass, man. Call Nathan or somebody. You know, I just put a bookmark there. You know, the placemaker, you know, whatever you call that. You know, place mark. And he goes, I was thinking of something a little different. A Paul's coming over this weekend, and you know, everything stopped at that moment when I realized that I would be on a track with Paul and Ringo on a song that I co-wrote with him. Never in a million years. What are the mathematical odds of that happening to a kid from North Hollywood?
Not one song, but 2 songs.
2 songs. He wanted to write a rocker opener, you know, just a riff song. So I came up with some weird riff on the spot. I actually thought of it on the way to his house. I didn't have nothing, and we finished the rest of it together. But just playing with him, and I've worked with I worked with Paul on a couple of different projects, and George was a friend of mine, and he played live with us, believe it or not, my band. There is, you know, pictorial proof of this. So I mean, they're the ultimate thing to me, the fact. But Ringo and I have become close friends, and I adore them. I adore everyone in this band. Are all like musical giants, friends and heroes, the whole bit. So I get a kick out of this. I mean, it's going on 6 years.
Were you in the studio when Paul laid down the bass?
No, man, he surprised me with it afterwards. I wanted to come badly, but listen, I didn't want to push luck. The fact that he suggested that Paul played it meant a lot to me.
When Greg has spoken about the All-Star Band, he describes it as a tremendous boys club, and you can really see that it's not just a musical connection.
No, we really do love each other. I mean, I really do like each other, and we hang out, we have dinner, and we laugh, we goof around. It's like being in a real band. Like, you know, we know each other well enough. We travel around together, do the whole things that regular bands do. We've been together now going, 6 years now? So, and most of us have known each other for decades. I've known Richard Page since the 70s. I've known Greg Bissonette, who's the one who brought me in through Dave Hart, their agent. I've known him for 35 years. I don't know, a long time. But some of the other guys I just met, like Todd, I was a big, huge Todd fan. And to get to work with him was a big kick. And, this turned into that. It was supposed to be just one summer. And it turned into this, well, we kind of like each other. And you want to do it again somewhere else? And the next thing you know, here we are,
It doesn't seem like Ringo wants to get rid of you guys anytime soon.
Nah, I don't think so anytime soon, man. To be honest with you, it was like we hadn't seen or played together in a year. And we walked in, and as soon as he counted off the song, it was like no time went by, man, because it sounds like a band. It doesn't sound like a bunch of guys you throw up there and go, oh, one of your songs, one of my songs. Oh, I want to do better on my song than your song. I put as much into everybody else's material, if not more so, than my own. You know what I mean? They asked me, what do you want me to do? They know what to do. They play all the right stuff. And, you know, on my stuff, I go, am I playing the part right? You know, but now I know after all this many years, I know that I am playing the right parts, I guess. And
you know, being such loving the Beatles since, you know, since your childhood and getting to play with Ringo night after night, are there moments where it does leave you and you're just playing with a great drummer, or is it always there that, oh my God?
Well, you know, I mean, I go out and work every night. It's all like I want to do the best I possibly can for him and for everybody else, you know, and for the audience. So they're the paying customers. But to play with him, I consider it a great responsibility to do the very best I can, because he comes from that pedigree of the very best that there is. You know, he's played with the best of the best. I mean, so what? The fact that I get to be a part of even a little teeny part of the history is mind-blowing to me. I mean, mind-blowing. If you'd have told me 50 years ago when I was a kid, it would have been like, yeah, and you'd be the first man on Venus, too. Why don't you go big, you know? And for me, this gig is not work. This is not a job for me. This is doing this because I love this and I love the man.
Are there some songs that you would love for Ringo to do that he's not doing in the set that you're trying to convince him to do? What would you love for him to pull out?
Oh, I'd love for him to let us to do some Lennon and McCartney songs. But, you know, he just looks at us and he goes, nope, we're not doing that. You know, because we played all stuff. I don't know, for whatever reason, he has a personal reason for that. Maybe it's because he didn't, you know, he wants to do the songs that were really part of him and showcase it. And I understand that, and I respect that. But there's still a part of us, like one sound check, we were goofing off and broke into I Should Have Known Better. And he went into full Ringo, like he did the whole head thing and the side thing, and he beat the shit out of the drums. It was awesome. And at the end, and there was nobody in the room. It was like this. And he reaches down into the microphone. Did you get that from Mr. Lukather? And I'm about died. I'm like going like this. I'm living the dream, man. It's like, this is, like I said, I do this kid to go on vacation. He doesn't even know that.
That's so amazing you mentioned. That's my favorite Beatles song. Actually.
Well, it's one of my, they're all my favorite Beatles songs.
Who was singing lead on that when you guys
did it? I think it was Todd and Richard, man. They have the voices.
Wow.
You don't argue with Richard Page and Todd Rundgren. You just go, you please sing.
Obviously.
And we were just goofing off. It was just an impromptu thing. Usually he goes, all right, enough. I know you love the music. It was great. I love the band too. You know, all that stuff that he does. But, you know, he really decided, he just said, okay, you want to hear it? He still got it, man. You know, I will fight to the death anybody that says he ain't got it, because he's got it. Well, I saw it. I heard it. I played with him.
You mentioned George, and I wanted to ask you
Paul.
about jamming with him at Universal Amphitheater with another amazing guitar legend, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, he was a dear friend of mine. Ed and I go back 40 years. Actually, I met George a couple of days before in some nightclub, believe it or not. I just happened to walk in there, and they said he was there, and I said, you know, of all the cats I want to meet, I've had a very interesting career. I mean, I've had a chance to work with a lot of my heroes, and they've all turned out to be, all but a couple have turned out to be amazing people. And this was a moment for me. I said, well, I'm going to be fanboy for a minute, and just asked to meet. I said, I just want to say hello and thank you for giving me a career, because his guitar sound made me want to play. I wanted to be George. And that was I love them all. No, who doesn't? But, you know, there's something about the sound of it. You know, there's the way he would do the Chet Atkins thing, with the way he bent and the way it sounded. I didn't know what it was at the time. I was, 7, 8 years old. But at the time when I had the chance to meet him, you know, I said, I don't want to bother him. You know, I don't want to be that guy. But if I could, my name's Steve Lukather. I worked with Paul, and I've worked with, I'm not just some geek off the street. I just, out of respect, wanted to say thank you for everything. And I'll leave him alone. I'll walk right away. So he said, no, come on over. And I sat down, they said hi. And he was so gracious and so kind. No errors. You know, he was just like inviting. And I said, I just wanted to say hello, man. And thank you, like with all sincerity, you know, sober as a judge. And he says, no, sit down for a minute and talk. And then I started ordering drinks, and I had a couple in me that I don't do it anymore. But at the time, I had a few in me, and I had the balls to ask him, well, you know, we're playing this gig for our brother Jeff, who sadly just passed away. Would you come? We're doing a little help for my friends. Like, but, you know, we got to do it the Cocker style just because we got a big, huge band and everything. And I felt kind of embarrassed saying that. And he said, no, I'll come down. I thought, yeah, sure. And it was an all-star band anyway. Donald Fagen came, Don Henley, Eddie was there as a favor to me, and he knew Jeff too. And, you know, all the people that showed up, and there were people that showed, David Crosby showed up out of nowhere, Mike McDonald, Boz Scaggs. The list is good. And James Newton Howard, all kinds of interesting people. And we're backstage before we go on. I get this knock on the shoulder, and we're working something out, working on something with somebody else. He goes, yeah, there's somebody here to see. I go, I don't have time to right now, and this is not a good time. He goes, no, you want to see this guy. He's from Liverpool. I went, no. And he showed up. And not only did he show up, he got up and played. And I have pictorial proof of this, which you'll read and see in my book. And then we became friends. He used to call me, he found me amusing. That's why he invited me to sit down next to him. Because first off, I know the guitar solos that he played, because Paul played some. And, you know, the worst thing you can do is, like, say, compliment somebody on something they didn't do. You know what I mean? It's happened to me. Oh, you sounded great on that record. I go, no, that was my buddy Mike, or that was my buddy. So, and they go, oh, wow. So I knew better than to do that. I didn't want to piss the guy off. That's the last thing I wanted to do. But he was so nice. And then we started hanging out and going to dinners. I had dinner once with Bob Dylan, him, and Jim Keltner. And it was like, I was looking around going, like, you know, all the girls in high school that wouldn't have sex with me, they would now, you know?
Well, you've done so much amazing work outside of Toto on sessions, too, that a lot of people may not know about. Michael Jackson beat it.
Yeah, I did everything on that except play the solo. I played bass, every guitar part on that.
You know, were you the one to suggest bringing Eddie, or did you?
No, Eddie was already on it. Me and Jeff Porcaro kind of put the record backwards. That Eddie and his engineer, Don Landy, cut the 2-inch tape, which had a SMPTE code, which is what, for yous that don't know, understand recording, it syncs up the machines. If you cut it, it doesn't sync up. So Quincy Jones called and said, Luke, you got to bail me. You and Jeff got to bail me. I can't lose Michael's master lead vocal and Eddie's lead master solo. Those are, you know, that's the whole song. So me and Jeff Porcaro put it back together for him.
And did they kind of have that riff, or did you kind of help?
No, that's Michael's riff. I mean, if it was my riff, we'd be on my space shuttle right now. We'd be hanging out and getting massages and stuff, you know.
That's true. I want to ask you about one incredibly epic, beautiful solo you played on I Love L.A.
Oh, that was another. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. I just got somebody tweeted me about working with Randy Newman. You know, it was a great honor. You know, those are the old days, man. We used to cut live tracks. You know what I mean? He was singing live, and we begged to sing, I love LA. We love it, because we're from LA. Me, Jeff, and Lenny Castro, and some of the other cats. And they let us do it. We quadrupled it and stuff like that. So it sounds like it's like, you know, a big, huge arena full of people. But, you know, working with him was great, because he let us do whatever we wanted to do. But at the same time, he was very meticulous about certain things. He wouldn't write out the parts. He'd go, no, I want you to play exactly. He's a musician's musician, man, a very kind, funny, really dry humored man.
But that solo on there, that's your creation.
Yeah, no, though I did that. That was mine. I doubled it real fast. Those were back in the days when you doubled everything or tripled it or whatever.
You came up with that off the top of
your head? That's what I got hired to do.
Wow.
98% of the parts you ever heard me play on anything, I made up myself.
Well, there's another session a lot of people don't know it's you on, unless they're really big Cheap Trick fans. And
I didn't even get credit on that album.
A beautiful solo on Voices, which sounds to me like what George Harrison would have done.
Well, I always go back to that. You know, whenever we make the Toto records or whatever we're doing, you know, the Beatles are the litmus test to everything. You know, and sometimes we, without knowing it, we'll use a production move or something like this. And when I first worked with Paul, was on Thriller, but then we did the Give My Regards to Broad Street thing. And for 2 weeks, Jeff Porcaro and I were able to hang out with him and George Martin and Jeff Emmerich, you know, the team. And once I got past the nerves, and Linda said it was okay to ask, we were told, whatever you do, don't ask anything about the Beatles. Like, I'm like, what are you doing? How could I not ask anything about them? And then I said that to Linda, because I wouldn't, you know, he was very gracious and nice, and we had worked together before, and it was all business and stuff. And I said to Lynn, I said, yeah, man, I really wanted to ask him a couple of questions, geeky questions, you know. But we were told not to mention the Beatles or anything. She goes, what? That's crazy.
What'd you
And
ask?
I said, really? And she had a Mellotron right there standing in front of her. And I just played the opening of Strawberry Fields. And he turned around and looked at me and he goes, oh. And I thank God I played it right. And it was just trippy. I'm looking at him going, I have no right doing this. Why am I doing this? It's like something else took over for me. And he just kind of cracked up, and that opened up the can of worms. The next thing you knew, I was asking him every geek. We'd have lunch every day, and we'd hang out and talk.
What were some of the geeky questions?
Well, just, you know, how did you get the sound on Revolution, the fast version, you know, and how did that over-fuzzed fuzz sound? And he said it wasn't a fuzz sound, that they had actually used, you plug one input into the next, you overload that back when the desks were tube, you know, analog. And, you know, they misused the gear, which is how they got all those great, wonderful things. Now it's like, oh, it's a sample, it's this, it's a plug-in, which is why records just don't make you get up and freak out when you hear them anymore. It's kind of like everything's like this. You know, nothing, you know, very little jumps out at you. I sound like some sour, bitter old bastard. I don't mean to be that, because music means that much to me. I still practice every day. I still love to do it, you know. I mean, like I said, it's not all about money. I mean, I do okay, but I mean, I don't wipe my ass with $1,000 bills or nothing like that. That's a myth. Most of it goes right back into the production, you know. But Ringo treats us like kings, and it's a joy to be here. So
voices, how did you come to play on that record?
Well, that was interesting because Rick Nielsen can play, and like we met each other on an Alice Cooper record that we did together, which I wrote a couple tunes on. It was an album called From the Inside. And he played on the record, and we hit it off, and Tom Werman called me and said, you know, for some reason they wanted a different flavor. I go, you don't need me, you got Rick Nielsen. What the hell do you need? So Rick goes, he gave me a gold pick, and I got a platinum record. I said, we didn't give you any credit, though. And I said, well, that's okay, man, don't worry. I played on other records, so I didn't get any credit either.
It's a great solo, though.
Oh, well, thanks, man. But I mean, the rest of it's all Rick, in all fairness. He didn't do it because he needed me. I don't even know how I ended up there. It was a great honor for me. I love those guys. They're a great band.
In your mind's eye, looking back to all the shows you saw growing up and throughout your life, what are the ones that really stand out to you as watermarks for you?
Ooh.
Live shows.
Oh, man, that's hard. I saw a lot of shows when I was a kid.
You ever see Hendrix?
No, I wasn't allowed to go. I was too young. My parents would, you're not going to go see those. Everybody would be on drugs and blah, blah, blah. I was only 11, you know. I wanted to see him at the Hollywood Bowl with the naked chicks and in the pool and all that.
Well, what was your first show you saw?
The first show I ever saw was Three Dog Night. And I ended up doing Corey Wells' solo album. That was one of the first sessions I did when I was a teenager. He was a nice cat. I love all those guys. Great band.
But in terms of live shows?
Live shows, I mean, gosh, I mean, there were so many great ones. Joe Walsh live. I sat outside for hours to see him at the Roxy. That was incredible. Close to the Edge, yes. Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick. Back when they were like events, like, you know, now there's 10,000 records a week released and music is background noise for multitasking or something. We used to sit and stare. We used to sit in a row so we could all hear the stereo. And, you know, whoever had the best stereo, we'd stand in line and wait for the record and open it up and then read the credits, and nobody would say anything until side one was over. Then we'd go, wow, track 3, man, wow, that was deep. That solo, just play that solo. And you're lifting up the needle and doing that. You know, and there was no telephones going. There was no other thing. It was just the music. And we were all musicians, and all of the guys that I hung out with all ended up making it. Like, you know, guys that, you know, not just the Toto guys like Michael Landau, John Pierce, people that moved on to, you know, the guys from our neighborhood that went on to be, or still professional musicians. You know, they're badass. And we still used to, it was all we lived for. We used to cut school to play at other people's schools. You know, and stuff. So, you know, I used to pay my sister to do my homework and stuff like that.
If you could have been a fly on the wall for any recording session for an album that you just worship.
Sgt. Pepper's, man. You're going to get that from everybody. But that was so, I got to ask all the geeky questions. How did you do, you know, you only had 4 tracks, blah, 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 you know, I could talk tech with Jeff Emmerich, you know, and Paul and George Martin were willing to talk about it, you know. I kept looking over, you know, just kick me under the table if I'm blowing it. You know, Linda was the sweetest woman, God bless her soul. She was so nice to me, and she was great. She sent me photos of us in the studio, and she went out of her way.
There's that great photo where the band's with Paul and Linda, and you're all wearing the white kind of Kiss makeup.
Well, he didn't tell us we were going to have to wear the makeup until we got there. But I said, if he's going to wear it, I'm going to, okay, cool. And while I was there, Jeff Porcaro introduced me to David Gilmour, which was another one of my heroes. So it's like, here I am. I'm just like 24 years old going, I can't believe this is all happening to me. And I'm going to be 60, and I still feel that way in a lot of ways. I don't have any bitterness in me. I'm still a fan of music. My son's a musician. He's 30. My older son, I have a younger son too, who's 6, but he's not a musician yet. But I only have one son who's a musician. But it's still like, I still get off on all this, man. This is weird. 40 plus years in, as a professional, I've been playing since I was a kid. My first band was making money. I was 11.
Well, Steve, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, so can
I talk too much. You can edit out all the bullshit.